Welcome back to the Forensics Detailing channel. Today we're reviewing the In2detailing Mini Dual Action Polisher. Okay guys, welcome back to the channel. So in this video, like I said, we're reviewing the In2detailing Mini 3-inch Dual Action Polisher. We've done a whole series of these where we've reviewed the Rupes and the Flex kind of premium offerings, and then I typically always include a review of the budget offering as well because I think it's useful. Now, just to repeat some of the basic information in the other videos, what are these little mini dual action polishers? Well, typically they're an accompanying tool. So most people that use these mini dual action polishers have a larger long throw machine like this In2detailing DAS 6 Pro 15mm throw that you do most of the polishing on the main panels with. And then you have a smaller long throw machine that supports a smaller 3-inch plate for 4-inch 80mm roughly pads. This tool is ideal for hitting the tighter, kind of intricate, smaller areas of panels on your cars, like bumpers, skirts, pillars, tighter areas, etc. The main thing about this machine, like I've said with the other ones, is that it is a free spinning dual action machine. So it has the orbit and the rotation, rather than just being a forced rotation, high speed rotary, which are a little bit more aggressive and prone to perhaps creating some issues. So they're very user friendly, these little dual action polishers, and there's less risks of using them badly and getting poor results. So that's why they're very, very popular. Let's run through the basics of this machine, guys. The In2detailing 3-inch mini dual action polisher. Its price is $94.95, which we're obviously going to come back to later on. So it's a very, very cheap tool, available through In2detailing. I'll link it in the description. I'll talk about some pad recommendations a little bit later on. Very, very good price. I don't think you're going to beat that price for this particular kind of tool. It has a 780 watt output motor with a speed range between 1500 and 5500 OPM, orbits per minute, or some people say oscillations per minute. But let's think of orbits of the plate on the main axle. The weight of the machine is listed as 1.9 kilos, which is interesting. The Flex XFE 7-1280, the Flex version of this kind of mini tool, weighed 2.1 kilos. The Rupes LHR75E weighs 2.3 kilos. When I picked this up, it didn't feel like 1.9 kilos to me. It felt a bit heavier than that. And I put it on the scales and it's coming out as around about 2.1 kilos. So it weighs heavier according to my scales and it's listed. So I'll speak to Imran about that. And if it's wrong, he'll probably get the page updated. But 2.1 according to my scales. Cable length of 4 meters, which is standard. Ideally, you'd have a nice 9-meter cable or something, but they just don't. None of them do that yet. But maybe that will come soon. Has a 9mm offset, which is important because it's different to the Flex and the Rupes offerings, which have 12mm offset of where the plate is mounted into the axle, the throw if you like. That is really important. I had an interesting discussion with someone on either the Flex or the Rupes mini post about the dynamics of the movement and the travel of, if you think of each individual abrasive, how that's moved. And ultimately that abrasive can only move in one direction, and so it can have a direction and a velocity. And obviously when you add two forms of movement, you change the kind of dynamics, but ultimately it's still a particle of abrasive moving one direction at a speed. But the effect of having a smaller offset is that the motion that's generated by the rotation of the plate is slightly smaller. So a 9mm offset should be slightly less aggressive than a 12mm offset. Now the motion as well, of course, is created by the rotation or the spin of the plate, but the smaller the size of that plate or pad, the less impact the rotation has, because obviously it's travelling smaller distances. It's a really cool discussion, the dynamics of this, and I'll put a link for a document that was created by an American detailer called Kevin Brown that I stumbled across when I was Googling, because it explains it all really well. If you're really interested in the dynamics of how dual action polishers work, so have a read of that. So let me get back onto the tool, or else I'll end up waffling for hours, but that's quite interesting. Comes with a 75mm plate that isn't sort of, it doesn't support any other plate sizes apart from the one that comes on there. And the tool comes with a 12-month warranty, which is obviously nice and important. So that's the basic specs. As always with these tools, we look at their kind of ability to cut paint, finish paint, the noise levels, the vibration, the heat generated, the general ergonomics of the tool, and kind of the weight, and that's the main sort of bulk of this review, or some of the things I want to cover in this review. In terms of cut and finish, I would have expected, well, I was interested to see if the machine had noticeably less cut than the Flex or the Rupes. And in short, I cannot tell the difference using the same pads between them. It'd be helpful if I had the other tools still, but they had to go back, so I haven't. But there doesn't seem to be any loss of kind of ability to cut paint through having a shorter orbit, 9mm orbit. And the orbit is important, like I've said, because that's doing more work on these smaller machines. It comes into play more. So it seems to have plenty of power, you know, to cope with cutting out sanding marks. And if you're trying to work on really lowering the paint and getting more cut, the tool still has plenty of capability with that 9mm offset. Combined with the fact that you can crank this up to 5,500 OPMs, at that top whack of the machine, it actually gets to the stage where it is a little bit too aggressive and it's building up too much heat on the surface, but only just. So it's not, they've got the top speed right, and the top speed on all these machines is the same. These guys seem to have followed suit, and that is the tipping point of where it's, you know, you don't want to be. So you back down a little bit between 4 and 5, and the tool's kind of working quite nice, and you can even go a little bit slower if you wanted to. So in terms of noise and vibration, guys, there's a little bit more of a rumble with these machines. I've seen it before when I've been comparing the kind of DAS 6 Pro Plus to the premium tools. It's the same with this one. The premium tools perhaps use slightly better cogs and gearings to interface the motor that way to the axle that way. So there's obviously cogs and stuff like that involved, and perhaps the quality of those components in the premium tools is slightly higher, and that's probably what you're paying for. You know, there are things that you lose when you pay a third of the price and you're buying the absolute cheapest. But I'll say this, the noise and vibration are not significantly bad. At top whack, where you don't really use the tool, you can feel that vibration, that rumble a little bit much, but down at speeds 4 and 5, it's perfectly acceptable. So, but that is one compromise over the other tools, a little bit more rumbly, that's how I describe it. There is another thing, I would suggest that there's a little bit more heat being generated in all of the kind of gearing and stuff than certainly the Flex and perhaps even the Rupes. It seems to warm up, and you can feel the warm air coming out of the vents quite quickly. So, you know, I'm not sure if it's a case of the cooling isn't as good, more heat is perhaps just being generated. But it gets to a point where that heat is at its maximum and it seems to stay there. So I don't think you're going to have any overheating problems with these tools. They're tested pretty well, so it's been around for a fair old amount of time. But it's fair to say it blows out a little bit more hot air and you can feel the heat in the tool more. Ergonomics, pretty good actually, guys. They seem to me to have modelled this, almost part of it's been modelled on the Rupes. This part of the machine where you put your hand and the bottom part of the shroud looks identical to the Rupes, but it's not identical on the rest of the body because, you know, they've put the speed control above the power cord, which is a better place to have it. So they've not just completely copied the Rupes design, but it looks like parts of it are a little bit similar. And the speed dial is actually better. It's not kind of as loose as the one on the Rupes, so you're not going to accidentally move it. It will move as you want it to move. A little bit fiddly to actually turn it and sort of see where you're going, but nothing major that's going to bother you. And of course, that same latch switch on the side of the tool. The plate that comes with it is a sort of flexible plate that has a foam component in there, which is just a little bit softer than using some sort of hard plate. It doesn't make too much difference. There is no wear between the plate and the shroud on these machines, and they seem to spin out really well. There are no issues with this tool being prone to stalling, even in comparison to the Flex and the Rupes. These mini tools seem to have cracked that for whatever reason. It's the larger tools where they interface and they rub on the shroud where they can be more prone to stalling. But I think with the longer throws, they almost seem to want that plate to interface as a sort of protection mechanism from you kind of not overwearing the bearing, I assume. But we're getting into areas beyond my limited area of expertise, you know what I mean. So all in all, the tool is pretty sound on all of the basic things. What do I want to get across in this review, guys? I want to get across what you're getting for your money and what you're not getting, and who this machine is really for. Well, primarily, guys, I think this machine is more for enthusiasts that are into the detailing, for the In2detailing tool name, bit of a coincidence there. So it's more for enthusiasts that are not looking for the perfect tool or the best tool on the market, but are looking for value for money and won't be using the tool every day, as I've covered before when I've reviewed these cheaper tools. Saying that, a lot of professional detailers have them in their arsenal as backup tools, because if you've just got one pair of tools and one of them breaks, you're in trouble. So a lot of guys have got these as backup tools. And there are professional detailers as well that use them as primary tools, so they have their main tooling options, because they still deliver you results. The dynamics are essentially the same. It's all of the little bolt on things that are perhaps different, but the overall difference in what you can achieve with the tools is quite minimal. So that's really who they're aimed at. It is quite a specialist tool. A lot of guys buying these at home perhaps might opt for one tool over two. So you know, this tool accompanies the long throw DAS 6 Pro Plus. You do have the option of just buying the DAS 6 Pro, which you might be able to see in shot somewhere over there, and using it, swapping out the plates. So obviously, using that method, you don't have to have two tools. But this method, these tools are slightly more aggressive than the DAS 6 Pro, which is one of the main reasons they're useful. When I say aggressive, it's a dangerous word, but I'd say they've got a little bit more capability to cut the paint a little bit more rapidly and get results a little bit quicker. And that comes into play, especially on rock hard paintwork that you're struggling to get through. So that's why a lot of people are using them. What's the main reason you should consider buying the In2detailing 3-inch Mini if you're going to pair it up with a larger tool? Don't buy this as a standalone tool to do your whole car with, because like I say, you're going to be using these small pads and it'll take you forever, you know. What's the main reason? The main reason, guys, is obviously the price. £94.95. Very, very good value for a kind of tool like this. Very good value, isn't it? I don't need to say any more on that. About a third of the price of the Flex and a little bit less than a third of the Rupes. So it has less warranty, the Flex, that comes with a 2-year warranty. It has less cooling capability than the Rupes, that has those holes in the plates and blows the air through. It just seems the Rupes is the tool to go for if you're really, really interested in keeping those pads cool and airflow directly through the pads. It's the only one, as far as I know, that does that, and it's the main advantage of going for the Rupes. You have a bit more noise and vibration, like I've said. Weight-wise, I believe it's 2.1, which matches the Flex. It's actually lighter than the Rupes, which is interesting, really, because one thing I think the premium tools should be doing is beating the budget tools on weight. You know, at least in my mind, and 2.3 is quite a bit heavier than that. So I don't know if I ever put the Rupes on the machine, but if they say it's 2.3, it's unlikely it's going to be lighter, isn't it? Perhaps slightly better ergonomics than the Rupes tool, but I think the Flex has the best ergonomics of the three. It feels a little bit more compact, is a little bit more compact and just a little bit more sort of solid than all the other ones. So overall, perhaps slightly less build quality than the Flex and the Rupes for about 1/3 of the price. That is what you're getting with this machine, guys. Overall, it will deliver you results. It gives you the same dynamics as the other tools with just a slightly smaller orbit. In terms of pad recommendations for this, guys, we're going to cover that all in a different video that I've been promising to do for a while. You have some main contenders in these kind of mini 3-inch pads. Obviously the Rupes pads with their kind of blue coarse pad, green medium coarse, yellow polishing, white ultrafine finishing and all that sort of stuff. You have the Hex Logic Quantum pads, which are designed for long throws as well, and they have a big range of different colours and open cell, closed cell, open cell, closed cell, and you know, different densities and all that sort of stuff. And they're quite nice, but I'm not a fan of those cone things, although I want to explore it a little bit more before I condemn them. You also have these Flex pads that I've been using with these tools that I really like, and I'll talk more about the Flex pads later on. But the cool thing about the Flex pads is you have 4 different grades of pads. You have the extreme cutting, the green, the purple, which is the kind of medium cut, the orange, which is like the polishing, and the ultrafine finishing, which is the red. So you only have 4 different types, and they have different sizes. They got the 160 pads that support the big 6-inch plates. I'm sorry if I'm off here with my numbers. And then you have the 5-inch 125mm plates, and they have a pad for that size. Then you have the pads for the 3-inch plates, and they also do a little spot pad as well with the same range of foams. So it allows you to have a set of pads that you can use for any particular machine, and they work well on rotaries and dual actions and forced rotations. So it does take a little bit of the complexity out of it, and so far I'm liking these pads. I'm really liking them. I find them, they're less prone to stalling on these dual action polishers, which is something that's important to me, although it's not the be all and end all. Okay guys, so that's the video on the In2detailing mini dual action polisher. I wanted to keep this one a lot quicker because we're covering the same old ground here, and you know, essentially we've covered this before when we compared these bigger tools, what the differences are. You are really paying 1/3 of the price, and the build quality is perhaps like, you know, 5 or 10% less than the premium tools. There's a little bit more vibration, and those sorts of things will be important to you if you're using the tooling every day. And that's why you see a lot of professionals opting for the Rupes and the Flex tools, which are fantastic. You know, I think, you know, I tend to lean towards the Flex tools. I just like the quality and I will pay them. But 4 years ago, I went and bought one of these DAS 6 Pro Pluses because I wanted a cheap dual action polisher and I didn't want to pay a lot of money. And I'm happy with it. The reason I don't use it is less about the build quality, but more about the capability that the force rotation and the rotary give me. It's been a reliable tool, so I'm pretty confident to recommend these cheaper ones. And I think what I've told you about what you're not getting is accurate. The word on the street on them generally as well, with the professionals that use them and have them as backup or primary tools, is generally pretty good, and it will tie in with what I'm telling you about them. So it's a solid recommendation there, the In2detailing 3-inch mini. And if you're going to buy this, pair it up with, my recommendation would be the DAS 6 Pro Plus. This one will have a 125mm plate or a 5-inch plate that you can use with 140mm pads or 5.5-inch pads. And this one of course will come with the 3-inch 75mm plate that you can use with pads, 80mm pads, so 3.5 to 4-inch pads typically. That whole pad and plate thing is confusing when you're starting out. It is, so I just try and explain it. But you can take all of the confusion out of it and just use the Flex pads because they will work on it. But like I say, we'll be doing more on pads on this channel very soon. So thanks very much for tuning in, guys. As always, let me know about this tool if you've bought it and there's any things that you think I've missed or you like about it that I haven't captured, or that you don't like about it that I've captured, because those comments are also useful for other people looking for proper information on this tooling. So put them there in the comments. Thank you very much for watching, guys, and I will see you soon on the Forensics Detailing channel. Bye for now.
Holding on to what I knew, but the moment's gone. Where was I when you